lovely guests, new topic. Welcome, Ninos and Arko. Ninos, what would you be doing if you weren't in sales?
Well, probably I would chase down other kinds of people instead of CFOs today at the calendar. Against their will, of course, but I still have a naive and kind of pathetic dream of still becoming a professional footballer at 35 with a body of 65. So...
Well, we've been talking about chasing dreams and adventures today, so I'm rooting for you as well, Ninos, of course. Arko, you've played water polo for more than 25 years, and you are a dive master. So leads me to think that you enjoy spending a lot of time underwater. Is it because of the silence, or is it because that's the only place where email can't reach you?
Well, I hear you're good informed. You might be also informed that next to my wife, I have 3 daughters. So sometimes a little bit of silence is not that bad thought.
But I know you're bringing...
Not assuming anything, but...
Yeah, but you're bringing the daughters dive with you, aren't you?
Sorry?
I know that you're bringing the daughters to dive with you.
Yeah, the oldest 2 daughters now also old enough, and it's nice. But the thing is, you know, when you were young, your parents say, oh, be careful, diving, dangerous. Now I go with my daughters and think, oh my God, what are they doing? So.
Well, at least they can't scream "Daddy" under the water, so you get a bit of silence as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Arko is already living his dream, as you can see.
Yeah. Apparently it's so.
Some of us can do that.
All right, so let's dig into our topic. We're going to talk about the CFO mandate redefined, and we touched upon this, that we're going to change perhaps then transaction to trust, so from transaction to trust. And let's start at the source. How reliable would you say the data finance teams are actually working with? How reliable is that data, and where do things typically break? Give you the word first, Arko.
So I don't think that the data source is the issue. I don't think things break there. So there are a lot of finance systems nowadays being used, disclosure management tools. That's a closed system. That works. Things don't break there. Of course, there might be some issues here and there, but in general, that's fine. I think where things starting to break down is you go from one process to another, from one system to another. And so, for example, when you think about, and I think most people here in the room know the last mile of finance, working very hard, late nights, crunching the number to come to the annual numbers. That needs to be published. But then there's also, and something people don't realize, there's a mile after the last mile of finance, because you need to publish it. If you're a listed company, you have an annual report that you need to publish. And then suddenly we're getting into a very manual process. People start working with Word and Excel and PowerPoint and emails going out maybe to an external design agency. And that's where we need to watch out, because there things are going to break down. Although there are solutions where you can also have a closed ecosystem in your reporting part. So, yeah.
Do you agree with this, Ninos, or do you see it in another way?
No, I can only agree with what Arko did, but I believe the problem starts before you even open up a BI tool today. It starts when the invoices come in to the company. Line items, cost centers, project codes. It's done manually today for most companies. And it's kind of naive for companies to think that a person under pressure can contribute with the right data. And that's the problem here, is it's the only surface when a CFO tries to explain the number in a board meeting. And by then it's too late.
And from my understanding, most CFOs believe that their finance function is more automated than it actually is. What would you say, Nino, is driving that gap, and what does it cost in practice?
I love that question. Well, this is what I'm burning most of. This is the key question for us. And the problem is that CFOs today if they ask the financial teams today, they ask, do we have an automated AP system, accountable payment system in place today? And 9 out of 10 teams here would say, yeah, we have. But the right question a CFO should ask is, what percentage of the invoices run through without the human touching them, without any manual touch? That's a different kind of question to ask. Most of the companies here, if it is not manually, they work with some kind of rules-based system. And that's a wrong kind of impression of what is automated. They create an illusion that you have automation in place. And they work very well on known suppliers. But as soon as something is wrong, on a tiny bit of line item, it falls on somebody's knees. And then you have to put on a rule once again. I mean, I've seen some of the biggest companies in Sweden, they have rules-based system up to 2,000 to 3,000 rules at a time. That's not automated. Because as soon as something ends up wrong, they have to start over and put on another rule. I mean, we constantly see companies who think they're at 60 to 70% automation. But when we sit with them and we map up the flow, it's usually somewhere between 30 and 40% automation. And the gap is very real for CFOs, because they don't know this exists until it's too late tomorrow. Can I just share an example?
Yeah, please go
take
ahead.
Obos, one of our biggest companies. They have 500,000 invoices per year. And they had manually and rules-based system before we helped them. And they went from the reality from 30% automation to 83%. What does that mean in practice? Because you can always throw out some fancy numbers. But in practice for them, that means freeing up 12,000 hours for the team. I mean, imagine what you can do with 12,000 hours and you end up with the team. That's how you work with the automation in place today. And I think that's the huge difference that CFOs today, some of the biggest companies in Sweden don't know the difference between AI and AI. And I get that because they talked about this before also. AI revolution will go very fast. Something that was something last week, it's old news today. I mean, just 2 years ago, nobody knew what Anthropic was, and now they are bigger than OpenAI. So you have to keep up, and I think it's crucial for the CFOs to know this for the organization.
Very interesting. Thank you so much, Ninos. Arko, where do you see trust breaking down most often in finance today? Is it in data, the processes, or the reporting, or something else?
Yeah, I think it's between those processes again. So it's the space between the data process and reporting. We're more in the external reporting space. And I already just explained the last mile of finance, how that works, and there's a mile afterwards. But nowadays there's another one where we should think about, and it's the artificial intelligence interpretation, because we are publishing our reports and our disclosures out there. And it used to be maybe 10, 15 years ago that we had a hard copy. That's it. But nowadays, it's much more than that, because we have also a PDF, and we might have a microsite, and listed companies need to work with taxonomies, ESEF filings. But if we look at AI, there are two parts of it. You have, of course, within the finance, people that want to be more efficient. They want to use AI to get these publications earlier and in a better way. But on the other side of the spectrum, you also have the readers, the consumers of these reports. And they more often also are using AI to read these documents. And we need to be aware that trust can break if AI interprets the disclosures in a different way. And that's very important to know. Just use AI yourself. Look at how AI is consuming your disclosures at the moment. Because AI wants structure, they want tagging, they want semantic content, and using a PDF, a standard PDF, not always produces that kind of content. Just a simple example where you have a standard PDF and the AI interprets a 1 for a 7 or the other way around. Then your numbers are already breaking, and then you can of course also lose the trust in the reports that are out there. So be aware of also how the content is being consumed that you produce. If you look at where trust is being broken, that's a very important thing nowadays.
And when automation works well, it doesn't just save time, it changes what decisions finance can actually make. What would that shift look like in practice?
Yeah, I think you need to shift from more like an operational function where we keep on checking if things are correctly, more to a strategic function and see, okay, we are moving now in a shift in shareholder communication. How can we accomplish that? What should be our message? What's the narrative that we're working on? So that shift can only be done when you have your automation, or at least your reporting ecosystem well designed and well set up.
What would you answer on the same question, Ninos?
Well, I would say the shift is from reactive to capable. When your team processes invoices manually, they report only on what happened. When it's automated, the data is structured. They can ask questions like they couldn't even ask before, like which supplier is over contract, which project is burning budget faster. The different conversation with the board for the CFO is finance stopped reporting on what happened and telling the business what to do next. It's like being 2 moves ahead when you're playing chess all the time. And I see a lot of teams, one of the biggest finance teams in Sweden, and then they believe they have this in place in system, but always when we break down, it's always lower automation, it's very much manual work, but they don't know the difference. And as I said, this evolution is going very fast. It's hard to keep up, but I believe it's a CFO's responsibility to try to keep up in this, because it can save a lot of efficiency and a lot of time for the business.
With increasing pressure on reporting, what would you say, Arko, that financial and ESG, how do you balance speed, accuracy, and control in practice?
Yeah, I think it should never be a trade-off between speed and accuracy and these kind of things. So yes, there is a lot of pressure nowadays on reporting, especially the external reporting. Like I just mentioned, 10 years ago, we were just having the hard copy. If you think about it, what's now going on in the corporate reporting space, it is about ESG with taxonomies like CSRD, the ESEF filing is going on. You have to think about AI. There's a shift in shareholder communication going on. All these things are there, and I sometimes compare it with the maybe in the circus where you have those people that's spinning the plates to have all the plates up in the air. Well, it used to be maybe 1 or 2 or 3, and now you have 20 of these plates also keep on spinning and make sure that everything is correct. So what I'm trying to say is there's a lot of still manual processes involved, and what we see, what at least our experience is that people are shifting to a single source reporting environment where you can work jointly with other departments, even with your auditor, even other vendors like a design agency, in one environment where you have all the tagging in there. Everything that's now gone is in a closed environment, and you can jointly work on those channels and outputs publications. Not only the PDF, also on a website, also electronic reports. And in that sense, there still will be pressure, but it will be better copable.
Do you have any last words from this, Ninos, that you'd like to add?
Well, I will only say this: if the data is incorrect and bad from the start, it doesn't matter which reporting framework you have or fancy proof. Everyone talking about speed and efficiency, but if it doesn't coexist with the data from the beginning, it doesn't matter at all. It's like eating fast food and hoping you will be fit tomorrow.
Okay, well, it's
that's the traditional garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us, Ninos and Arko.
Yes, thank you.
There was no jury.
Yeah.